two-way dialogue. All right, so we went through our intro. We asked a good question. We transitioned into a two-way dialogue, and now we're in a conversation on the doorstep. What are we trying to accomplish in this conversation so that we can move this person forward? We can actually understand if they have a problem, how that problem is affecting them, and then if we could possibly help them solve that problem. So with the two-way dialogue, we're going to get more specific when the value is there. We've talked a little bit about vagueness. We've talked about how, right, in the intro, we're going to be somewhat vague, but specific enough that it's not weird, but we're teaching them the lessons in the right order. We're putting in the big rocks first, and then we'll fill in with the little rocks. So as far as our solution goes, when you're in the two-way dialogue, it's really tempting to solar word vomit all over them and just mansplain solar and say, this is how it works. It'll lower your electric bill. It's so great because of this and this and this and this and blah, 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 blah. Stop talking about solar and your solution, whatever. Don't talk about it until you've established that a problem is there. Now, I know in the door dynamic, you feel this pressure. Like, you need to tell them what you're doing. Like, oh yeah, well, you don't have to buy the solar. You can just buy the electricity and we'll install it. It doesn't cost you anything. There's no debt. Blah, 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 yap, yap, yap. That's not helping. Like, some people that'll trigger some curiosity, but for the most part, not helpful. So how do we establish on the doorstep that there's a problem without them feeling like we're beating around the bush trying to sell them something? Until you've established that there's a problem, your solution is limited to, it depends, but if it were to work out, they would lower the bill, right? They're like, so what are you doing? Like, what is this? Well, it just depends. There are a few different programs. If it were to work out, though, they would just lower the bill. I don't even know if we could do that for you yet. I just do the assessments to see if it'd even be possible. Like, tell me a little bit more, right? And then I'm going to start asking questions to discover the problems and go through those three layers: the outer logical need, the inner logical need, and then the inner subjective emotional need that our potential customer has. So let's talk about it. What does this look like? Now that we've established, right, your solution, you're not going to explain your solution. You're not going to mansplain it. You're not going to yap about solar. You're limiting it to, it depends. But in most cases, it would just lower the cost. I don't know what that would look like until I understood a little more about your situation. Then we could look into more of the details of what that might actually look like for you. So how do we get to that point? First, we go through our intro and then we're problem finding. You're going to find the problem. And then, like Jeremy Minor, dude, as soon as there's a small amount of disgruntlement, dude, he freaking pounces on this thing and just tears it apart, blows it up. I think in my mind, I think of like zooming in on Google Maps. You're like zooming all the way into the house, looking into the living room, seeing the dude like you're zooming all the way in. As soon as you find a small amount of discomfort with their current situation, you're zooming in and you're blowing that up. You're probing, clarifying. Tell me more about that. How does that affect you when that happens, right? Like asking good questions like we talked about in the previous videos. So what are the three layers that we're going through? The outer logical problem, which is factual about their situation. Their inner logical problem, which is also factual, but more about their personal situation. And then their inner subjective emotional problem, which is specifically, it's a feeling about how they feel about those problems and how they're affecting them. So let me give you some examples. What does this look like for solar? Their outer logical problem, like electricity is expensive, rates are going up, blackouts, inconsistencies in like the tiers and time of use and rate fluctuation, bill fluctuation, double billing, paying like for delivery and paying for electricity. These are all just like situational problems that most people probably don't love, but it's just kind of like a fact of the situation. And then we're going to go one layer deeper into their inner logical problems, what those things are doing for them personally. Well, they can't use as much power because it's expensive. They're getting double billed. The rates are going up. Maybe they don't use as much power. They can't predict what their payments are going to be. They have no certainty about the future of electric costs. And who knows how reliable these power lines are. Like, look at them. Like, they're falling apart. It's a disaster, right? Like, do you really trust those power lines? Outer logical problem, inner logical problem, and then inner subjective emotional problem. Freedom, stress, peace of mind, not having to guess. The answer to the inner subjective emotional need is going to be a feeling, right? This feeling of relief, not having to guess what their electric bill is. And so as we go deeper and we can get to, hey, so what is this feeling? How is that actually making you feel? What you're paying for electricity, rate hikes, double billing, blackouts, how is that actually affecting your life? And then how do you actually feel about your life being affected in that way? And as we go through all three layers of the problem, Then we'll get to a point where the space has been created where we can suggest a solution, our solution, and it actually means something to them. Because not only did they tell you what their problem was and how they feel about it, they told themselves. So after we ask questions in the two-way dialogue to go through, we'll do a separate video on the questions to actually ask to get to these pain points and understand if this person has these pain points. But after we go through those, now we're in a position to frame our solution in a way that's going to be valuable to them. And when we're setting the appointment, we actually don't need to get into the solution much more than what I said earlier, right? The solution is just, yeah, they would produce your power on site. There are a few different ways you can do that. It depends on a few things. I'd have to understand more about your situation. Okay, problems. Okay, yeah, it seems like we could possibly help. I need to check a few things just to be sure. Just do the assessment, right? Your meter, electrical panel, what size service was it? Okay, and how much power did you use? Okay, grab the electric bill, meet me at your meter. I'll take a few notes, and then we'll see if this could possibly help you out or not. They would, if it did work out, they would just lower the electric costs. It's nothing crazy, maybe 30-40% off of the electric bill. And now that the value is there because they have a problem that needs to be solved, now we can give them not too much specifics, but we can start to get more specific with what the solution is going to look like for them, right? Like it's fully funded, however you want to frame it, right? Solar farms, they're funding solar farms for individual properties. You can remove the delivery charges off the electric bill for producing your power on site. However you want to frame your solution in a way that is different than solar, because their perception of solar is probably not accurate. So however you want to frame your solution, now you have a space to do it in a way that will resonate with them. Now, one big overarching principle of the two-way dialogue is we're constantly pulling back and using neutral language. We did a separate video on neutral language, but the whole time we're having this conversation, I'm not quite sure it would work out for you yet. I'd have to understand more about your situation just to see if we could even help. Sometimes it works out, sometimes it doesn't. I'm not the final say. My job is just to do the assessment, see what options, if any, could be available to you. Right. I'm using these phrases that show that I'm detached, I'm neutral, and if they do it or not, I mean, it doesn't make a difference to me. But by having that neutral language and constantly taking it away, anytime you say something good about your solution, yeah, it would just lower the bill. But I'm not sure we could do that yet, right? Every time you say something good about your solution, we're always taking it away.